He may not say it out loud, but every man is craving something far deeper than sex. It's the kind of connection that doesn't just excite him, it anchors him. And if you can tap into these 4 emotional turn-ons, you won't just attract his attention, you'll capture his heart in a way that no one else ever has. A man might look strong, confident, and completely put together on the outside, but underneath all that, what he really craves is to be admired for who he is when no one else is looking. It's not about his achievements, his income, or how he presents himself in front of others. It's about the quiet battles he fights that no one notices. The way he carries pressure on his shoulders and still shows up. The way he tries to protect the people he loves, even when he's falling apart himself. That's the version of him he wishes someone could see. And when a woman sees that, when she acknowledges the man beyond the surface, something powerful happens inside him. He feels seen in a way that most of the world never offers, and that emotional recognition creates a bond far stronger than any physical attraction ever could. Most people are used to being admired for the image they present. Men in particular are often rewarded for what they do, what they achieve, and what they can offer. But admiration becomes transformative when it's not about status or skills. It's about soul. A man might receive praise for how well he performs at work or how confident he looks in a crowd. But deep down, he's wondering, would she still admire me if I wasn't all those things? That's the fear, that if he strips all that away, he's no longer impressive. But when a woman looks at him and says, I love the way you think, or I see how hard you're trying, even when it's not easy, or I admire your patience, your loyalty, your values, it melts something inside him. He suddenly feels like he doesn't have to perform anymore. He doesn't have to be the superhero. He can just be himself, and that self is good enough. That level of admiration is rare, and because it's rare, it's priceless. When a man experiences that, he feels emotionally pulled toward the person who gave it to him. It doesn't matter how stunning someone looks or how charming they are. None of that can compete with the power of genuine emotional admiration. It's the feeling of being chosen, not for his highlight reel, but for the parts he thought no one would ever care about. And it's not about blind flattery either. It's about thoughtful, specific appreciation. Noticing the details, seeing the nuance in how he handles stress or how he speaks to others, or the way he sacrifices quietly and never asks for credit. These are the invisible things that most people miss, but when they're noticed and acknowledged, it lights a fire in him. Not just attraction, but connection, devotion, and emotional loyalty. Because suddenly, he's not just another man in the world trying to prove his worth. He's a man who has been seen, admired, and deeply valued for exactly who he is. And once he experiences that, everything else starts to pale in comparison. Most men have grown up being taught that vulnerability is weakness. They've been conditioned to hide their emotions, toughen up, and deal with things on their own. So when a man finds someone he can open up to, someone who listens without rushing to fix him or judge him, it's not just comforting, it's transformational. That emotional safety becomes addictive. It's not about solving his problems or always knowing the right thing to say. It's about presence. It's about being there without trying to control the outcome. When he knows he can talk about his fears, his insecurities, or even his past mistakes without being met with criticism or sarcasm, he lets his guard down in a way he rarely does with anyone else. Most people don't realize how heavy it is to carry everything alone. And for men, that weight becomes invisible over time. They smile, laugh, and go about their day like nothing's wrong. But beneath that surface, they're often one sharp comment away from shutting down completely. That's why emotional safety is such a rare turn-on. It's not common. The moment a man realizes he can speak honestly without being attacked or diminished, something clicks inside of him. He no longer feels like he's walking through life with armor on. He starts showing the sides of himself he usually keeps hidden, the ones that are scared, the ones that doubt, the ones that feel not good enough. And when those parts of him are met with kindness instead of shame, he feels a kind of emotional intimacy that physical connection can't even come close to. This isn't about being soft with him all the time. It's not about never challenging him or holding back your own truth. Emotional safety doesn't mean being passive. It means being present. It means creating space where both people can be real without fear of rejection. When a man feels emotionally safe with a woman, he naturally starts investing more. He wants to be around her. He wants to protect that space. He becomes more affectionate, more expressive, and more grounded in the relationship. Because now he's not performing, he's not playing a role, he's being himself. And that self is being accepted, not just tolerated. Most men don't even realize how emotionally guarded they are until they meet someone who makes them feel safe enough to relax. And that feeling becomes the standard by which they measure all other connections. If you can create that environment for him, not through perfection but through presence, you become unforgettable. You stop being just another person in his life and become the one place he knows he can finally take a breath. And that emotional breath, that moment of peace in a world that constantly tells him to be strong and silent, is more intimate, more magnetic, and more powerful than anything physical ever could be. There's a deep emotional need in every man to feel like he's been chosen, not because someone needs him to fill a void, but because someone genuinely wants him. The difference between being needed and being chosen is subtle but powerful. When a man feels like a woman is desperate to have someone, anyone, to make her feel whole, it doesn't make him feel special. It makes him feel like a placeholder. But when a woman has her own life, her own confidence, her own peace, and still chooses him, it awakens something much deeper. It makes him feel desired in a way that strokes his soul, not just his ego. Men may never say it out loud, but they long for that feeling of being wanted by someone who doesn't need them to be complete. It's in the way she looks at him, not like she's clinging to him for emotional survival, but like she sees something in him that aligns with what she already values. That kind of connection is rare. It makes him feel worthy, not because he fixed her life or saved her from loneliness, but because she sees him and still decides, I want you. That sense of being chosen freely, without pressure, without obligation, makes him open up in a different way. It creates a sense of emotional attraction that feels real and lasting. There's something incredibly attractive about a woman who doesn't chase a man out of fear of losing him, but simply shows up as someone he can't help but be drawn to. She's grounded. She doesn't need validation from him, which ironically makes him want to validate her even more. She doesn't beg for his time, which makes him want to give it freely. That emotional dynamic creates a space where the relationship doesn't feel like a job interview or an emotional rescue mission. It feels like a powerful meeting between two people who could live without each other, but would rather not. When a man feels like he's being held onto because he's filling a gap or helping someone escape their own discomfort, he eventually feels burdened, not bonded. But when he feels like he's with someone who would be fine without him, but still wakes up every day and chooses him, that's where emotional loyalty begins. It gives him the freedom to be himself, to relax, to know that he doesn't have to constantly perform to earn his place. He was chosen because of who he already is. That's why this emotional turn-on is so powerful. It's not about being emotionally detached or pretending you don't care. It's about being so full within yourself that your love becomes a gift, not a need. And that gift, that conscious choice to let someone in when you don't have to, creates a level of connection that's more magnetic than anything physical. It makes a man step back and think, this is rare, this is real, this is where I want to stay. Every man deep down is driven by a sense of purpose. It's wired into his identity, even if he doesn't always talk about it. Whether it's building a business, mastering a craft, protecting his family, or simply trying to become a better version of himself, his mission matters to him more than almost anything else. It's not just about ambition or success. It's about feeling like his life stands for something, like his efforts are moving him toward a meaningful goal. And when a woman sees that in him, respects it, and even encourages it, she taps into one of the deepest emotional turn-ons he has. Because it's not just support, it's belief. And belief is powerful. Most men go through life with people either ignoring their mission or trying to pull them away from it. Sometimes it's subtle, like constantly questioning how much time he spends working or downplaying his dreams because they don't seem practical. And sometimes it's more direct. Pressure to give up on what he cares about in order to make someone else feel more secure. That pressure chips away at his spirit. It makes him feel misunderstood. So when he finds someone who not only understands his drive but respects it, he starts to emotionally bond with her in a way that feels deeply personal. It's no longer just about chemistry or compatibility. It's about alignment. Respecting a man's mission doesn't mean becoming invisible or losing your own goals. It means understanding that his pursuit of meaning isn't a threat to your connection. It's part of what makes him who he is. And if you can admire that, not just tolerate it, but truly admire it, he will begin to see you as someone who gets him in a way most people don't. You become the person he thinks about when he's exhausted, when he doubts himself, when he's on the verge of giving up, because your respect becomes fuel. It becomes his emotional anchor in a world that constantly tries to distract him or drain his energy. When a man feels like his mission is safe with you, that he doesn't have to shrink it down or explain it away, he lets you into his inner world. He starts sharing ideas, visions, fears. He starts depending on you emotionally, not just for comfort, but for clarity. Because now you're not just someone he's attracted to, you're part of the team. That's what men crave far more than just a pretty face or good conversation. They want someone who believes in what they're building, who stands beside them, not in their shadow or in their way. And when that happens, the relationship takes on a depth that's rare. He no longer sees you as just a partner. He sees you as his witness, the person who stood by him when the dream was still fragile. And that kind of emotional bond, it becomes unshakable. It makes him stay, grow, and give you the kind of loyalty most people spend years chasing and still never find. Every man wants to feel like he's enough. Not because he's done something extraordinary, not because he's hit some milestone, but simply because of who he is. And nothing strikes at the heart of that desire more deeply than when he's made to feel like a hero, not a project. When a woman sees the strength in him, instead of constantly trying to correct him, he feels respected, he feels wanted, and more importantly, he feels trusted. That feeling of trust is what pulls him in emotionally even more than any physical attraction ever could. Because deep down, a man doesn't want to feel like someone's work in progress. He wants to feel like someone's choice. The dynamic changes entirely when he's with someone who brings out his strengths rather than pointing out his flaws. Of course, he's not perfect. He knows that. But there's a world of difference between someone who believes in who he can become versus someone who keeps reminding him of who he isn't. When he's constantly corrected, advised, or critiqued, he begins to shut down. It might not be obvious. He might still show up, go through the motions, nod along, but emotionally, he's checked out. He doesn't feel seen. He feels managed. And no man wants to feel like he's in a relationship where he's being managed. That doesn't inspire him to grow. That inspires him to pull away. But when a woman talks to him like he's already enough, even when he's struggling, it lights something up in him. He starts rising to that belief. He wants to be better, not because he's being forced to, but because he wants to honor the trust she's shown in him. He wants to live up to her respect, not her pressure. There's a big difference. Men don't fall in love with women who try to fix them. They fall in love with women who make them feel powerful in their own skin. Women who remind them of what they can be, not what they aren't. That subtle shift creates an emotional fire that keeps burning even when things get tough. When a man feels like her hero, it's not about ego, it's about purpose. He wants to protect her, provide for her, make her smile, show up for her. And when she responds to that effort with appreciation instead of critique, he keeps showing up again and again. He's not trying to win her approval, he's trying to keep her admiration. That's a completely different game. One that makes him loyal, one that makes him emotionally invested. Because now, being with her isn't exhausting, it's empowering. He feels capable around her, he feels trusted. He feels like a man, not a project that needs fixing. And that emotional response is something no amount of physical intimacy can replicate. Because while attraction fades, respect and admiration have the power to grow deeper with time. There's something undeniably powerful about playfulness. It's often underestimated, especially in relationships where people think intensity, depth, or serious connection are the only things that matter. But for a man, emotional attraction often starts in the lighter moments. The teasing, the shared inside jokes, the moments when laughter replaces pressure. Those are the times he feels most connected, most at ease, and most drawn to the person he's with. Playfulness is where trust begins. Because in a world that demands constant control, constant performance, constant masculinity, a man craves moments where he can just breathe, laugh, and be a little boy again, even if only for a second. It doesn't mean he wants immaturity, it means he wants emotional release, and a woman who knows how to bring that energy without sacrificing depth becomes someone he doesn't just want to be around, she becomes someone he misses when she's not there. When a man is with someone playful, he doesn't feel like he's in an emotional pressure cooker. He doesn't feel like every interaction has to be heavy or serious or purposeful. There's freedom in those moments. And freedom is intoxicating. It makes him more present. He forgets about the emails he hasn't answered, the expectations waiting for him, the armor he wears around everyone else. With her, he laughs. With her, he jokes. With her, he feels like himself again. Not the version of himself the world expects, but the version that just is. That emotional safety, disguised as fun, becomes one of the most magnetic forces in the relationship. Because it isn't about being perfect, it's about being real, and real is rare. Playfulness also signals something deeper, emotional intelligence. A woman who can keep things light without being dismissive, who can tease without belittling, who can laugh at herself and invite others to do the same. That kind of presence shows confidence, it shows she's not easily shaken, she doesn't crumble under tension, and she doesn't let the small things ruin her energy. That's unbelievably attractive, not just because it's fun, but because it suggests resilience. And men are naturally drawn to people who can ride life's waves without drowning in them. It makes him feel like no matter what comes their way, she won't just survive it, she'll find a way to laugh through it. That kind of emotional partnership is priceless. In relationships that lack playfulness, everything eventually becomes a task. Conversations turn into negotiations, emotions get weighed down, even intimacy starts to feel like a routine. But when playfulness is present, spontaneity comes back to life. A random glance across the room turns into a smirk. A light joke diffuses an argument. A sarcastic comment breaks the ice after a long day. These are the micro moments that keep love fresh. They don't require planning or effort, they just require presence. And when a man feels that lightness in his relationship, it doesn't just make him happy, it makes him stay. Because he's not just chasing comfort, he's chasing joy. And joy is rare in a world that so often feels heavy. What many people don't realize is that playfulness is a sign of deep emotional intimacy. You can't joke and laugh with someone unless there's trust, unless there's space, unless you both know that underneath the humor, there's safety. That's what makes it so powerful. It's not about avoiding deep feelings. It's about creating a space where those feelings don't feel so scary, where he can show up in all his complicated, messy humanness and still be met with a smile, a wink, or a playful comeback that says, "You're safe here." And that makes him fall deeper than anything words could ever express. So when we talk about what truly turns a man on, what really captures his heart and keeps him coming back, it's not just about physical chemistry or surface level attraction. It's about something deeper, something lasting. It's about feeling admired for who he is when the world isn't watching. It's about finding emotional safety with someone who doesn't judge, but listens. It's about being chosen by a woman who doesn't need him to complete her, but still wants him by her side. It's about having his purpose respected and supported, not questioned or interrupted. It's about being seen as a hero, not a project. And it's about sharing joy, laughter, and emotional lightness with someone who knows how to keep love playful and real. These are the emotional turn-ons that leave a lasting imprint on a man's heart, because they don't just excite him in the moment, they ground him, connect him, and pull him into something real, something he won't want to walk away from, something worth choosing again and again.